Happy New Year's, everybody, from Gokar Spartan and the denizens of my channel. It's going to be a new year. That means it's going to be a new year for the channel. Looking back at this year, I must say that I really enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed all the episodes that I made. It's been a pretty long ride with this year. But I wanted to make this video just to reflect, just to go back on some characters and some character arcs. I would say my top standout characters of the year, specifically for me, because everybody else has their different opinions on what characters they like, which characters they don't like. But I'm just going to go over some of the standout characters that I believe are pretty essential to the Power Rangers Ultimate Universe. I will start with Billy Cranston. Billy Cranston is literally, in my opinion, like the real leader of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, besides obviously Tommy. But if you strip Tommy away from the Power Rangers, let's say if it was the original 5, I feel like you take Billy out of the equation, the Rangers don't get a lot of stuff done. Period. Without Billy, there's just a lot that doesn't get done for the Rangers. And even in this universe, Billy's important for the Rangers, especially since each team has like super scientists, like the Force Military of Dexter, Beatrice, and Rick, and the Galactic Crash House has Qyburn, Scrozzle, and Finster, and various scientists. So for the Power Rangers, having someone like Billy, and by extension I would also say like Dr. K, is very good in their pocket, especially in this type of universe. And Billy more or less is like the voice. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is more or less like the voice of the Power Rangers, how they feel about the ongoing conflict and everything that's going on. And for Billy, he is kind of overwhelmed because when he was dealing with Lord Zed, Rita, and all the other villains, those were singular threats. But now it's a unified front of villains, and the roster just keeps on increasing. So Billy's solution to this is to create a Z-Wave, which Kimberly doesn't want to do because Kimberly's afraid of the consequences of the Z-Wave. Because one thing is, like, you're going to destroy people. There's going to be people that probably didn't deserve to be destroyed. That's going to get destroyed by the Z-Wave. Also, the fact that some of these villains, like Ikagen, most of the Cthulhu's can regenerate. So if a Z-Wave were to take place, it'll vanquish the evil, but they would just come right back, and then you still have to fight them. Or, this is another scenario that Kimberly didn't mention. What if in the middle of the Z-Wave, the particles or whatever that makes up the Z-Wave gets manipulated to change its targets? That's another thing. And another standout character I'm going to have to say is Kimberly. Kimberly is, honestly, for me, the original 3 Mighty Morphins. When I say that, I mean, I'm talking about Kimberly, the ones that stayed. Kimberly, Tommy, and Billy were like, because they basically anchored the franchise. Because Rocky, Adam, Aisha, they came through and they were new characters. We get used to them. But those 3 were the veterans. So even on this channel, I try to really do stuff with those characters, mostly. At least have them do stuff, because it's like a lot of characters I have to write for. Because Force Military, it's a big roster, Star Force, Gokaigas, and I really got to get back to Captain Marvelous too. But for Kimberly, she wanted to get Tommy back because she stopped being a Ranger for a little bit after after Tommy got defeated. Well, they didn't get defeated, but after the clash with him and Draken, more or less, she just kind of stopped for a bit, took a breather. But once Rogexiel told all of the Rangers that Tommy was still alive, she basically went out there to go find Tommy. Her journey was interesting because with Kimberly and most, by extension, all the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I always try to give them tools in their arsenal that they never had before. Tools that would have been useful. Tools that Power Rangers nowadays have, like Battleizers, Super Forms, their own Megazords and whatnot. Because each of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers essentially can create their own Megazord if you really think about it. Because, alright, I'm going to give you an example. We'll say, for example, for Kimberly's Zord, she could create, if we count all the Zords that Kimberly has, she has the Pterodactyl, she has the Firebird, she has the Crane, and the Shogun Zord. Those could combine to create a Zord, and even if we go for Rocky, he's never piloted the T-Rex Zord, but we could count that as extension because it's a part of his power set. The Red Dragon Thunder Zord, the Shogun Zord, the Gorilla Zord, and the Lion Zord, plus the Battle Zord. Honestly, Rocky Zord would be really powerful. But yeah. But for Kimberly, I wanted to give her a little arc where, we've seen a little bit progression in her power set. And also because she's closely tied to Lord Draken. She's closely tied to Lord Draken in the sense where Lord Draken is made of the Ranger Slayer, and Kimberly is opposed to the idea of Ranger Slayer even being a thing. Because even in the comic books, which my tale is a little bit different, because in the comic books, the Ranger Slayer becomes good. Here, she's just going to more than likely stay evil. But in the comic books, like Kimberly and the Ranger Slayer, they have that connection, and she learns what happened. We learn what happened to the Ranger Slayer, all that. But more or less, that's what is going on with Kimberly. Now moving forward with Kimberly, Catherine, and Tommy. Catherine is now a Ranger Slayer, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic, whereas Kimberly's going to have to deal with Catherine, or Tommy's going to have to deal. Someone's going to have to deal with Catherine, because there's 2 Catherines, to be fair, because Tommy splits the powers. He split the Zeo powers from Catherine to create another variant of Catherine and himself, because he already had his green Zeo variant. He just turned it back to red to match the other team aesthetically. And those variants are currently fighting Tommy right now, along with Jason and all of them. Whereas with Jason, some of them are fully fledged, like I would say like Rocky, Jason, Adam, and Tanya. They're not fractions, they're actually fully fledged Rangers. But Catherine is a fraction because he separated the Zeo powers from her, so he could still have Catherine if the Zeo thing went wrong. So more or less, that's what's going on with Kimberly. Now, another standout character I'm definitely going to have to say, I'm going to cover Mighty Morphin, then I'll get to more like OCs and like members of Organization 13, Westeros, Naruto characters and whatnot. But another standout character is definitely Tommy. Because with Tommy, you know, we all miss Jason David Frank. I miss Jason David Frank, and I want his character to continue, man. And it's a shame he's not here, and I wish he was. I really do. You know, but the thing is with Tommy, he's more or less interesting because he was the catalyst that started all of this. Him and Draken's clash was the thing that opened the abyss of evil, and the reason why, like Rita, Ikage, and all of them leave it back. So for Tommy, it's more or less, he's gonna have to get his powers back at a certain point. Whereas he has the Green Ranger powers because Captain Marvelous just gave him the Green Ranger powers. Because, you know, Captain Marvelous has the Ranger key, so we let Tommy hold that for a while. Because Lord Draken is holding on to all of the other powers besides the White Tiger powers, which is why he created a red Zeo duplicate. But for Tommy, it's just more or less, that's more or less somewhat going to be an arc. Plus he's dealing with all the corrupted Rangers and just the state of the Power Rangers in general, because he's slowly being up to date with everything that's going on. Now, we get to another character that I would have to say, I would rank as one of the characters of the year. I would have to say Sora. Just because I always wanted to see what was going to happen at the end of Kingdom Hearts, when Sora gets older and stuff like that, and his journey is a little bit more grown and stuff. Where, you know, him and Kairi are probably going to get married, they're thinking about children, they're thinking about an actual future. That's what I kind of want for Sora, but before I could even lean into that, you know, we do have to have a slice of life moments with Sora. That's why Sora is kind of with the Flawless military, because him and Rogexiel are already friends. That's already been explained. Him well with the organization, because even at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, him and the organization, he didn't really have no beef with those guys. Like, he kind of just understood where everybody was coming from. The only person that he kind of gave any smoke to towards the end of that was Zigbar. But for the most part, yeah, so that's where I could develop Sora. And Kairi, you know, in core, a standout character. By extension, I do want to develop her more, because I feel like she got the bare minimum in Kingdom Hearts, and she got killed in Kingdom Hearts 3, and we had to bring her back through the DLC, which I love the DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3. It's my favorite part of the game, actually. But yeah, it's just for that, and I just want to do more for Kairi. So of course she was going to have a good fight. I wanted to give her a fight scene. That's why she fought the corrupted version of Aqua, which I do have plans for Aqua's character as well, because, you know, it's kind of the reverse where Terra's on the good end of it and Aqua and Ben are evil, and Terranor is just an extra. He's also kind of good, so there's technically two good Terras, because there's Terra and then there's emo good Terra. Basically, you could just, if you're willing to quantify it to that. So, but for Kairi, I wanted to do that fight so Kairi could actually get some hits in, you know, because Kairi barely, we barely got to see much from her. But I also need to show her that she's not ready yet. That's why she gets one-shotted by Sarcosis, which is why I made Sora enraged, because I figured for Sora, we've been playing Kingdom Hearts for quite some time, and each time he always gets anti-form, and in each game he masters it better. The first game he becomes Heartless, so we don't really get an anti-form, but in the second game he's kind of like wilding and stuff like that. In the third game he actually could use his Keyblade in the anti-form. So, like, even though it's not really shown on screen, but through gameplay we can see a progression of Sora learning to control the darkness. So at this point he would have a little bit of a better grasp on it. Like, it would, like, especially if he's fighting for a noble cause. Like, his woman just got hurt by this red-coated bully, and he needs to do something about that. So that was for Sora. But now let's get to some other characters. We'll get to some more OC-ish kind of characters, Power Ranger-ish. We gotta talk about the boy, the squid, the duo of danger, Ikagan and Madoko. I love these two, man. These two are honestly, when I saw Q Ranger, because I love the concept of Q Ranger in general, the fact that it's 12 Rangers, and you know, it started off as 9, but we ended up getting like 12. But when I first saw Q Ranger and I first saw these guys, I didn't really think much of it at first, because I just thought it was just another monster of the day. But even the first villain, Eri Drone, he was incredibly cool looking. Like, he was one of the coolest. Like, the first 4 villains, Ikagen, Madoko, Scorpion, and Eri Drone, those 4 were the coolest looking villains in Q Ranger. It kind of tanked after that. Like, you know, like, the villains were still kind of cool. Like, Donner March was dope. I like the bird dude. I keep forgetting his name, but I like the bird dude that was friends with Ho-Oh Soldier. But I like him more so as his character, because more so than I like his design. And I also like him in Cosmic Fury because, you know, y'all gave Tarek something to do. Y'all gave Void Knight's Unmorph kill with that fight, so that was dope. But just for context, we all know Cosmic Fury turned Inkworth into like a butler. He was kind of a coward, kind of the butt of everybody's joke and stuff like that. And originally when I started this channel and I started the Star Force episode, it was to repair his character specifically. And now, like, it's just more or less like I wanted to bring back a it factor to him, just make him more of a menace, but somewhat kind of like a comic relief character. That's why, you know, he's kind of like funny in a way, but deadly serious to the point where his like body count is incredibly high, and he's gotten to the point where he's either directly or indirectly caused so much devastation throughout the entire Power Rangers Altered Universe that his name is constantly in everybody's mouth. Him and Rogexio's name is constantly in everybody's mouth, because one is this unstoppable threat that's killing everybody, and one is this woman that possibly can save us, but we have to call her mommy. So it's just more or less like that's what's going on there. And every time I develop this character, I always give him something new, something that he didn't have in Cosmic Fury or in Q-Ranger. Like when he first showed up in Q-Ranger, Madoko has the regeneration powers. Ikagen doesn't possess that, but I decided to make them an entire race of Cthulhu's. Made him get a whole planet and everything, even tied his lore to Dragon Ball with Frieza and getting this planet getting destroyed and stuff like that. And even tied it to Greek mythology, whereas the origins of that planet was through Poseidon, because the Cyclops race was of Poseidon in Greek mythology. And like, if you really think of the concept of Ikagen, he's like a reverse Cyclops. A Cyclops only has one eye. Ikagen has many eyes all over his body. That was his original aesthetic in Q-Ranger. And if you really think about it, that big crystal above his head, above the skeletal face of his, kind of looks like a gigantic eye, even like it even moves sometimes. So yeah, like I would say like they're very Cyclops-esque, but with like hoops on their head. Like I just love the aesthetic of Ikagen, and by extension the Cthulhu race I made branched off of him. But more or less even that, he gets a new armored form when he destroys the Cosmic Fury Rangers. Later on, when Qyburn presides upgrades, he gets like more of like this moth-like form. Madoko also gets new forms along with him as well, because because they're both attached at the hip. And I feel like for me, it's hard for me to balance my love for Ikagen and Madoko, because my love for Ikagen is like way high. My love for Madoko is up there, but it's like a common love that I would have for like a regular character. And more or less, like I want to give her shining moments and importance too, because I love Madoko. But I specifically love the first Madoko when she was like calling people jelly brains, and she had an attitude problem. She reminded me of like just so many women, just foul-mouthed women that I knew throughout my lifetime. And I honestly figured, like, you know, it would just be really cool just to have like an evil black chick be like the denizen of a lot that's going on. Because like more or less, like with Madoko, the first variant of her was just like this, she was just this foul-mouthed basically evil person. But when she came back, she became a Lolita, and then she came back, she comes back, she gets a new personality every time. But for me, I wanted to keep her personality the same, which is why I made the Cthulhu personality thing optional. For Inkworth, it happened because I needed to repair. I just wanted to make Inkworth a little bit more menacing, and more or less I just wanted to just like have him as not an equal to Ikagen, but a close second, because as he was just another comic relief character, kind of like Goldar and Rito and Zio, and when they was over here not having any memories and stuff like that. That's how it felt for him. So that was just what I wanted to do with him. And it's just yeah. Now we get to another character, another standout character I would have to go for. I'm gonna have to say Mami, Rogexio, because I developed her a long time ago. Whereas when I developed her, it was in my Naruto the Flaw's military story. She was an extra member alongside Dexter and a couple other characters, mostly as a love interest for Xigbar. But the Xigbar character has changed so much in the story of Kingdom Hearts that I kind of got her somewhat paired with Madara a little bit. But aside from that, that was the original purpose. But she kind of grew into like this goddess character as I kept on retelling stories and making it about like other characters. Because at first it was just about Naruto and stuff like that. But then after a while, I just didn't like, when I'm retelling the story, I don't want to, guys, I like Naruto, but I watched Naruto for all the characters that weren't Naruto. Like I like Naruto, like his dream of being Hokage. Like, don't get it twisted. That's my dude right there. But more or less, how I feel is just I watched it. The first fight I saw wasn't even a Naruto fight. It was Tenten versus Temari, where Tenten got washed by Temari. And like I saw all these other characters like Gaara and Neji and Lee and Sasuke, and I was more interested in those characters at the time. So those were the ones that drew me into it. So even when I was writing the Naruto story, it was about him, yes. But now that in Shippuden just made it just even more egregious when y'all created Madara, because at that point it was just the Madara show. So yeah, so originally that was the original purpose for the creation, but now, you know, it was just more or less I tied her story to Greek gods and various other things, and she is a goddess her powers basically work where she could basically mimic, recreate, and do anything that anyone in the galaxy can do. And if someone was to use powers against her, she would adapt to it eventually. Now, she is not an unfeeling goddess at all. She actually is pretty freaking human, like as far as her emotions are concerned. But she's just been around for so long, and the reason why she gets to be this human, because fractions of her memory does get lost, so she doesn't fully get the full experience and the full powers of what she would really freaking be. But so essentially, even as powerful as Rogexio is, she's still essentially nerfed, and she could be even way more terrifying and stronger than that. So yeah, but narratively, she's the anchor that anchors more or less the villains down, because we got a lot of bad guys that did a lot of egregious things, and I just wanted, like, you know, because I like villain characters. I want to write for them. Like, yeah, I like the heroes. I like Power Rangers and Keyblade wielders and all that. But my favorite characters are always villains. And if I want to write a hero story, I'm going to have to make them into heroes too. And just make even far worse villains that we're going to have to deal with. Which I love doing, because I could just create villains in Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. I got a huge rogue gallery of unused villains that is just waiting, just untapped potential. So they're let me see, another standout character I would have to say for me is Xemnas, specifically because Xemnas is way different than what we're used to, just because this is a Xemnas that has to face his, like, you know, his own past, in a sense, where he basically did use those people for another plan, essentially. So more or less now he's trying to more or less just find himself and ground himself, just trying to find more peace and stuff, because just he doesn't want to revert back to what he was. He kind of doesn't want to be evil. He's kind of done with all that evil stuff. The same would go for Terranor and Young Xehanort. So even though Rogexio did beat the crap out of him, he's kind of grateful, because he can actually just, not being the leader of Organization 13 gives a lot of stress off of Xemnas' hands that he had the entire time. Because if you really think about it conceptually, Xemnas is 10 years old. Because yes, he had the experience of Xehanort, but he was essentially born and then had 10 years of experience to basically be the leader of a cult. So, and the reason I say he's 10 and Ansem is not, because Ansem's Secret of Darkness went all the way back to the past, so when young Xehanort was younger and spoke to him about his destiny and brought him into the future. And he stayed on the Destiny Islands up until Sora met him when he was looking for the mushrooms. So Ansem had enough lifetime to get older and mature, but Xemnas had just about 10 years to basically be the boss of a company. So more or less, this just gives Xemnas a little bit difference. Now, another standout character I would like to say is Lucky Vaughn. Now, Lucky Vaughn is kind of like he's my first prototype when it comes to making an OC Red Ranger, because there's going to be a lot of people that want to be Red Rangers in the future in the story, and plus I'm going to put my own Red Rangers in there. So, like, in a Red Ranger, they're supposed to, like, be just, you know, mostly just heroic, good, but for Lucky Vaughn, he's kind of living in the shadow of his mother, Rogexio, whereas she's just this overpowered goddess, and people kind of expect him to be as overpowered, or they just overlook him and only care about his mother. And he kind of wants to prove that he's more than just the son of Rogexio, and prove that he could be just as valuable as her too. And he wants to prove it to her too, because even she wants him to basically get to her level at some point, because like Rogexio feels as though as many resets as she's had, there's going to be some type of finality to her at some point. It's like she can feel it. She can't necessarily grasp it, but she can feel that her end is coming at a certain point. She doesn't feel final. She doesn't feel final as she did before. That's why she said it in the console crossover when she was talking to Littlefinger about this being the 69th reset, and essentially her son needs to learn how to like repair, like undo cannons, essentially, because what Rogexio can do is, if like basically let's say something came to destroy a bunch of people in the city, Rogexio could just undo that. Like she could undo buildings and all that with the grand reversal. She wants her son to learn that technique along with other godlike techniques, because the universe is going to need that when she's no longer here. And this video is getting kind of long, so I will give one more standout character and then I'm going to call it a day. The last one I would have to say for me is Athena. Two more actually. I'd say Athena and Xehanort and the derivatives. I'll start with Athena. Now, when I read the tales of Medusa, I didn't like what happened to Medusa at all. I didn't like Poseidon, I didn't like Athena, and just Greek mythology as a whole, Zeus and all of them just be wilding for different reasons. Like each and every one of them has did something terrible to a human being without their consent. Malformation and other things that we don't discuss, more or less. And I wanted an equalizer, someone that could put these guys in their place. I mean, we already have Kratos, but I wanted it to be Calypso, because to be honest, when I was always into Greek mythology. I was always into the tale of Odysseus, and Calypso fascinated me because Odysseus was kind of trapped in a situation where he couldn't get back to his wife because he had this overpowered goddess just basically saying, "You're mine now," and he really kind of wanted to get back to his life, but he kind of loved the goddess too, so he was kind of under catch-22. And I was wondering why she never left the island and all of that. So I made my own tale for her to add to the extension to what's going on in the Greek mythology and tied it to that. Therefore, when I created the Galactic Crash Outs, the time when I created Virgo, in the back of my mind, she was always going to be Athena. Like, most of these Galactic Crash Outs was already mapped out before Inception, because like I had the idea of basically a monster Organization 13 in a way for the longest. So basically, so Athena was always going to be that, and I figured it'd be cathartic for her to be malformed into a creature as well, because Rogetsu was always going to destroy Olympus and do what she needed to do to the gods. But for Athena specifically, I wanted her punishment to be specific, because Poseidon, he did what he did and he got ripped apart for it. But Athena, you malformed a victim and made her even worse. You turned the victim into a monster against her consent because some stupid rule, some stupid temple rule was broken. That never sat well with me, and that never sat well with my extension, Rogetsu. So that's why she got transformed into a rat. Was a rat for several resets for a while, until she found the Crash Out switch and became Virgo. So that's what's going on with Athena. Now the derivatives: Kid Xehanort, Zekrosis, and Necrosis, as well as Master Xehanort. Why wouldn't Master Xehanort be mad if his plan was supposed to be going according to plan, and then all of a sudden, you know, the guy that he put in charge of the organization is dead, and then when he brought back, he's just kind of working for the person that killed him, and everybody's just not doing what he wanted them to do. Like this, they're not even getting Kingdom Hearts. Like, Kingdom Hearts is already in the sky. It's already there. It's the moon that inhabits the world. They don't need to really get it. They just use it as a moon. And they kind of do a bunch of other that Xehanort didn't have planned. He kind of wanted the Kingdom Hearts, Master Keyblade War, and stuff like that. And you can't get that when there's somebody else that's in the organization that's kind of inviting you to come, telling you, "Hey, come to the Flawless Military." And Xehanort's like, "Flawless Military? It's my Organization 13. Like so Xehanort is tight. So he tries to, you know, talk to Xemnas and them about it, but they're all kind of comfortable with their new lives. They don't want nothing to do with Master Xehanort, and they also felt like they was used by Master Xehanort. Like he literally created like an overpowered 10-year-old just to like, you know, have more duplicates of himself. He was going to put his heart in other people's body, and like after a while, like they just, when they have their own agendas and they're their own people now, they don't necessarily need to listen to Xehanort. And Xehanort's just mad because, you know, none of them are listening to him, and the only one that's listening to him is Ansem. The only reason Ansem's listening to him is because him and Mavis kind of got a thing. That was explained in episode 1. Because best believe, if Mavis wasn't a part of the equation, he'd probably be right next to Xemnas. But he has Ansem at the very least. But Ansem's not enough. He needs more. He needs to replace the 3 people that replaced him. He needs to replace his vessel, Terranort, his nobody Xemnas, and his younger self. So he's going to get another version of his younger self that had a different life, but would probably be susceptible to manipulation, which is why he got Kid Xehanort. He's going to separate his heart this time and make himself into a heartless and a nobody. The reason why he never did it before in Kingdom Hearts is because if he would have did that to himself, he would have just essentially died. That's why he separated his heart into Terra, and then had Terra create Xemnas and Ansem, and then they died, and then he came back that way. But I felt like if he was to just do it himself, like maybe they wouldn't be strong enough. But with Golden Lord and Qyburn, you know, he has Monster Reborn, and, you know, like nanobites that can make his old self stronger and stuff like that, so he could produce a more worthy product of a heartless and nobody. That's why Necrosis is so big. That's why he's so big. He's kind of an unnatural heartless. And Zekrosis is, you know, he just kind of looks like your typical organization member. Emo head. He kind of looks like the rest of them. He kind of fits in seamlessly with the rest of them if you would have just given him a black coat. But yeah, but Necrosis and Zekrosis, they're interesting for me because, like, unlike, like, Zekrosis is completely okay with what he is. Like, Xehanort told him that you're a tool, and Zekrosis is like, alright, bet, I'm just going to be the most destructive tool possible. That's why Zekrosis he's always like doing some type of sneak attack, or he's always like he's always so. But Necrosis, I need somebody that's going to talk back to Xehanort. And him and Kid Xehanort both kind of inherit that kind of energy, where they're both going to talk back to Xehanort. They're not going to just let Xehanort just walk all over them and stuff like that. Xehanort doesn't necessarily like this, but he doesn't mind just so long as they're doing his bidding. But I just wanted more interesting variants because, like, I just found it funny that nobody in the Organization 13 spoke back to Xehanort except for Xigbar at one time, and the only reason he didn't because they had not put the Keyblade out, and at the time we thought it was because he was threatening them, and now we know that that was because that was Lushu's Keyblade, and he was just looking at that. He was kind of reminded of his purpose and stuff like that. But more or less, the derivatives, they're going to be a threat for the Kingdom Hearts plotline moving forward. For context, I have several plotlines moving forward that's going to conjunction into one episode, because I don't make one plotline, one episode. It usually be like an A plot, B plot, and a C plot. So there's going to be one for the Kingdom Hearts one, which I've already made certain episodes with Daenerys Targaryen being the main bad guy, and the Targaryens coming back, and some of the Game of Thrones characters are going to have to deal with this, because I want to do stuff for Game of Thrones characters too, and I love them just as much as I love the Power Rangers. The Kingdom Hearts storylines, that's going to be tied in with a lot of other stuff due to the fact that Kingdom Hearts is a crossover storyline. So where the Game of Thrones storyline is going to be like mostly condensed to Game of Thrones and have mild crossover energy, the Kingdom Hearts crossover is going to have more big crossover energy, and the Power Ranger stuff that's designated more towards the Power Rangers is going to also be there, along with the Flawless military stuff that has to do with maybe Alexia, Mavis, Rihanna, Gravestone Twins, Hikage, Lucky Vaughn, and Star Force Rangers. So that's more or less what's going to be going on, and I'm going to make another plotline and maybe even another series specifically for people who want to become Power Rangers and Kamen Riders, and they're going to conjoin at a certain point. But for the most part, that's what's going to be going on for the next upcoming year. I just wanted to thank everybody that, you know, just come to the channel, that watches these videos, that's actually intrigued in the lore, that follows the lore and wants to see the next upload. Y'all mean the world to me, and I just wish y'all get everything that y'all want this year, and just stay safe out there. Everybody, may the power protect you. Follow Margulis, follow the Hyrus, and may your heart be your guiding key.